Please join me in welcoming Sharone Ben-Levi to the stage.
Thank you, Rich. It's a pleasure to be over here again. And my previous colleagues, the keynoters, spoke about the future, 5, 10 years ahead. I really would like to focus on the upcoming year, maybe year and a half, and give you something, hopefully, to give you something that you can work with in the short term. So I'm speaking about practicality in VoIP deployments. So AudioCodes, as Rich described, is involved in many of the deployments out there in the market, whether it's through our OEM partners or through our VAR and channels. So we really touch a very wide area in the market. And we're seeing things that I think is important for the audience over here, whether end users or resellers or developers. And I'd like to share that with you today. So it's basically I'm speaking, about movement from concept to profits. So I guess in this economy time, it's something that most of you would admit that it's important. And it's even more important. So kind of a reminder about the technology adoption life cycle. And we've been escorting the industry for many years. AudioCodes is actually 15 years in this business. We've seen the innovators, the early adopters, the visionaries, and the theory speaks about the chasm between the visionaries and the pragmatists, the early majority. So the early adopters, the visionaries, accepted and 80% completed products, proof of concept. They obviously made money out of it if we're speaking about toll bypass and the early IP PBXs and IP-enabled PBXs. We had many versions of this. Most of them are technology-oriented. Again, proof of concept. Now, and I'll try to share it with you and show you that we are at the early majority stage, and I'll show you why we think that we are at that stage and that we have or in the process of crossing the chasm. The early majority, the pragmatist, would like 100% product. There's no compromises over there. They usually buy from the big vendors, from the established vendors. They like sustainable product. And they are very business-oriented, opposed to technology-oriented. Efficiency, profitability is what's on the table. So I'll try to take you through a journey over here to show you where we are on the curve, why are we over there, and what can you do in order to be better positioned for it, realize that it's coming, and take advantage of it. So hopefully we'll get more practical deployments, but also my presentation will be practical for you. So it's it reminds me of my 3-year-old son when we're driving in the car and he's asking, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? So I believe that this is where we are right now, and I'll try to show you how we can get to the top of the curve. VoIP is currently being adopted. The number says 50% and higher of what is being sold right now in the market is voice over IP. And even features are now beyond the TDM regular features. So we have unified communication. There are discussions and even some high-definition voice coming to the mix. Whether through companies like Polycom or Microsoft with the real-time audio. Security is on the table. We see more maturity in the market. So another example for the maturity in the market, if we just place the curve on the AudioCodes revenues, so you can see something similar to the chasm over there, the early adopters in the early years, if we're thinking about Vocaltech and Clarent and the toll bypass up to 2000. And then the curve itself is probably self-explanatory. But what's interesting over here is how much technology is being requested from AudioCodes compared to how many complete boxes, complete enclosures. And as you can see, the technology demand is declining in opposed to the request for complete products, complete boxes, which again is another proof or testimony for the maturity of the market. Between 93 and 97, most of our sales and also our competitors in the market has been around boards and DSPs, and again, more technology oriented. Since 2000, as you can see, the products are much more complete. It's more networking equipment, more enclosures. And if you follow, again, our competitors, you can see that most of them also follow through and are now offering boxes in opposed to blades and DSPs. There are still sales of DSPs and blades, but again, I'm speaking about the trend. Another proof for the maturity of the market, as we said, the early majority type of customers are buying more from companies that they know, that their colleagues know of, the major players. And due to consolidation in the market, there are fewer and fewer large players. Most of the names are familiar to you, whether it's Cisco, Nokia, Siemens, Alcatel-Lucent, Cedar Point, AudioCodes, Huawei, ZTE, Nortel, and others. So that's another proof that the market has matured. Another testimony is the type of distribution and channels which are involved. And there are many other channels in the market. I picked and choose the larger one to show the audience over here that companies like ScanSource Communication, which is $2.5 billion, are distributing VoIP. Westcon Group, $3 billion company, distributing voice over IP. CDW and Dell, this is mainstream distribution. It's another proof that the market has reached a level of maturity. This is an interesting example. Speaking about session border controllers. So consolidation is another example for maturity in the market. And there is a lot of consolidation doing. Another proof for the maturity in it. We're seeing Acme Packet, which is definitely the market leader on the session border controllers, but reporting on financial, they're reducing their financial estimates. And we see companies like Juniper, which acquired Kagur, abandoning the standalone SBCs, trying to fold the SBC into the routers, into the data elements, network elements. But the stronger trend that we're seeing in the market is companies like Sonus selling the SBC as part of their telephony solution. So basically, we see the SBCs folding into the telephony solution as another piece in the puzzle that is being sold by the vendors. AudioCodes is actually providing session border controllers within the gateways. If you look at Cisco has their own session border controller as part of their telephony solution. So it's all integrated. And yesterday, there was another announcement in which NextPoint, which used to be Nextone as well, was acquired by Genband. So we're seeing that trend that SBCs are basically being folded into the telephony solution. During the rest of the presentation, I'll try to explain why this reflects maturity. So how do we get to the top of the curve, right? I mean, that's, I guess, the major question. So what's holding us back so far? As far as we've seen in the market, there are too many separate elements. And you can say, what's the big deal? It's actually an advantage, best of breed, right? The more elements, the more specified elements, the better quality of the solution. Right, if you're referring to the lab. So I'll mention challenges with this kind of an approach. First one, interoperability. So that's great. You got your session border controller, your gateway, your IPPBX, you have a router, a firewall, everything works together, and you deploy it. Then what happens? One of the vendors is upgrading their software. You need to do the interop again. Then the other vendor is upgrading its own software. You need to do the interop again. And then IPv6 comes up. So it's a constant battle with many, many elements in the network to try and keep updated with the interoperability. Interoperability is going to be there. My suggestion over here is that it should be reduced to make it more practical. Right? That's the main message. Separate management tools. Again, same story. You have many vendors trying to come up with a joint solution, and each one of them has its own management system, the maturity of the management system, and a different philosophy for it. Trying to get an IT manager, or if it's a service provider, to cope with all these types of management system makes it very, very complex. Basically, all of the things I'm showing you right now is affecting the day-to-day operational life of either an IT manager in an enterprise or an R&D group within a carrier, within a service provider. And we're trying to make it more practical. So security, again, each one of these vendors has its own security tools and security philosophy. And again, your security is as weak as the weakest link in the chain. And you need to learn different types of security levels from different vendors. Painful integration and troubleshooting. You know, we've been there. We're seeing it in a day-to-day life. There are finger pointing, and it's really challenging when you have all of these elements. Who is really responsible for the integration? Complex cabling, I guess the picture speaks for itself. You know, it's also the physical elements of the installation, including too much space consumption. It adds up. Too many vendors to deal with. So you got a sales guy coming to visit the IT manager or the R&D group of the service provider. He has different service level agreements. He has different pricing structure. You need to sign agreements with him. Then the fulfillment mechanisms, the lead times of the products. And after a while, when you set up the relationship and you get comfortable, then the guy is, you know, moving on to a different career, and you get someone else. How many people and how many interactions like it an IT manager or again a service provider can manage? This is all ends up at the end of the day at operational cost. There's no distinct demarcation point between the service provider and the enterprise. So the enterprise IT department is changing something in the routers. The telephony goes, you know, the service goes away. Who is responsible? So again, another challenge that we need to solve. We're speaking about being practical over here because we're talking about mass market. Huge amount of products is being moved right now. So it has to be simple and practical. Support and training. Okay, so you got 5, 6, 7 elements over there in the network. You need to get training from each one of the vendors. You need to send your guys, your people over there to get trained. And again, there are updates, so it's a recurring process. How much of it can you sustain and still be profitable? Or it depends if you're a reseller again, or if you're an end user, how much expenses you would like to spend on this kind of a business model. So convergence is the answer. Obviously, we've spoken in this industry about the convergence of the media, but this is not what I'm referring over here. And I'm also not referring to convergence on the application layer. I'm actually speaking about convergence of the solutions. Fewer boxes, less complexity, easier to install, fewer vendors. And that's the strongest recommendation we would like to convey to you over here. And us together with you as an industry, this is what we need to go when we are speaking about the early majority, and we would like to get to the top of the curve over there. So the main message over here is it should be operationally scalable deployments. The operational side of the VoIP deployment is currently very hurting. So I have some examples of solutions, so I won't leave you only with the challenges. And the first thing that we're seeing in the market is something which is called Multi-Service Business Gateway, MSBG, which basically includes many elements into one package to make all of it simplified. We spoke about the telephony solution, whether it's IPPBX, a fax server, a call center solution like we heard from Interactive Intelligence, an access device, a gateway, routing and switching device, and security, whether it's SBC or security gateway, all of it in one package. So that's one reincarnation, if you like, of being practical in the deployments. Another example is actually the relationship within our industry. So the distributors, the VARs, the bigger the deployments, the more complex their relationship. The system integrators, the ISVs, the independent software vendors, right? The network equipment providers. All of us need to come together and make it simpler for the end user to use our solutions. We know and we are aware that there are going to be many players in this industry putting together solutions, but we have to work together to make it very, very practical and simple to deploy. A good example we've seen in the keynotes yesterday from Microsoft with Response Point and with Skype. So when Skype is speaking about their success, they said basically we took existing elements. The secret for their success, and that I'm quoting from yesterday, was their ability to install on their PC and it's working. So this is where we need to go. With Response Point from Microsoft, their key message was, you know, it takes 10 minutes to get the PBX installed. So this is where the industry is going. And if we're all recognizing it, I think we can contribute to the adoption of voice over IP and help it. So it's very important to have a very tight partnership within this ecosystem. And I have one example about BroadSoft. So AudioCodes is constantly refreshing its interoperability with BroadSoft on a regular basis when they're upgrading their software or AudioCodes is upgrading their software. In addition, we have a joint installation guide. And this is the kind of examples that we need, that when the end users really get these elements and pieces, he has instructions and clear way to get to a complete solution and sustainable for the long term. So the key takeaways is we're moving from concept to profits. And while we're doing that, simplicity is the key. So we have to keep the installation simple, the relationship simple, and everything very tightly integrated so we can go and approach mass market deployments. Industry-wide collaboration is very important. And, you know, thanks to internet telephony, we're coming together and we can do that and speak and interact and make sure that we're making it simpler for the end users. And the goal, again, is practicality in VoIP deployments and operationally scalable deployments. With that, would like to open it for questions if you have regarding the market trends. See no questions so far, so you are invited to come and meet with us if you have any questions. We are on the exhibit floor, and I would like to thank you very much and Rich for inviting me over here. Thanks.